It's cheating. In my eyes, it's simply cheating at best, and at best it is bending the rules. And the worst thing about it, I don't even blame the clubs involved. All these Premier League fixtures that are being moved because of COVID is simply it's not even getting out of hand. It's well and truly out of hand. The reason is the Premier League. As soon as they start approving the requests of 1 or 2 fixtures to get moved because of COVID, they've got to approve them all. Otherwise, it no longer becomes a level playing field. And the funny thing is, by trying to keep a level playing field by approving all the requests, it's no longer a level playing field. Clubs are using COVID as the excuse, but is it really the reason? And I don't think anyone believes it is. Of course, there will be 1 or 2 exceptional cases where actually COVID is the genuine reason that the games need postponed, where half the team are out with COVID. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. I don't think many football fans do have an issue. But we've got to get back to the basics here, which is you've got enough players, which is 14 players. You've got your starting 11 plus 3 substitutes. Game on. These fixtures need to be fulfilled. And we all know the reason for postponing them. It alters case by case, club by club. It is slightly different for each club. It may be genuine, but I think when you look at them, I don't think we're having it. The fans aren't having it, and it's starting to frustrate me. So this might be a little bit of a ranty video, so I apologise. And if you're a West Ham fan, tune in for West Ham stuff. I've got a West Ham aspect to it coming up. But let's start at the start, because at the minute we don't know if the Arsenal-Tottenham game is going ahead. The Burnley-Leicester one has just been postponed got postponed a couple of days ago for this weekend. And when you look at the clubs involved, you can understand why, and it's not COVID. It's well and truly out of hand now. But let's go back to the original bad boys and all this, if you like, which was Newcastle United. At the end of December, they were getting games postponed. But when you looked at it, St. Maximin was injured, Callum Wilson was injured, the January transfer window was just round the corner, and they have a big bucket of cash to spend. Now they signed Kieran Trippier, they signed Chris Wood, suddenly they're ready and raring to go today in their fixture against Watford. Now it could just be a coincidence, or perhaps Newcastle have simply moved the games in order to suit them, just like other teams in the Premier League are doing. Their aim is to move the game so that when the fixture does pop up, when the rearranged fixture comes round, they're in a stronger position than they are today in order to play that. It might be that players are returning, it might be that they've been able to returning from injury, returning from African nations, they've been able to indulge in the transfer market. They might have a hard fixture, move it, have an easier one, so when the harder one comes round again, they've got a bit of momentum behind them. There's various reasons clubs are wanting this game postponed. And the worst thing is, I don't think anyone believes it's due to COVID anymore. They're using COVID as the excuse to get these games postponed. And it's not good. There's far too many things here that contradict each other in order for it all to stand up. But take a look at the Arsenal-Liverpool one, because it is a tangent. So Arsenal are requesting that the game tomorrow against Tottenham is postponed. They put that request in last night. It's still not announced whether it's postponed or not. Why it's taking this long, I don't know. But that's a separate issue altogether. But let's take a look at it, because Arsenal look like the bad guys right now, and they are bad. Should they get this game postponed? Well, no, they should have the squad ready to go. If not, why are you loaning out Maitland-Niles? That player, Balgam, I think his name is, that went to Borough. Okay, he's not involved in the first team, but his experiences you're going to get. Clubs and managers, and there's a lot of excuses given for youth not getting a chance in today's game in the Premier League. Why we can't bring the youngsters in? A bit of a cutthroat thing in the Premier League. And in normal circumstances, I understand that. I understand why you can't. But then here you have the perfect opportunity to bring your youngsters in, use them to make up the numbers, but clubs are reluctant to do it, and I sort of get it. I sort of get why. You don't want to have to play the inexperienced players and weaken your side and lower your chances of losing the game. But there's one prime case from last season, which we'll get into in a minute. There's some clubs doing this right. West Ham's one of them. Leeds United are another one, where they are just getting on with it. But clubs like Arsenal, they've loaned out Maitland, a player it's his first team experiences. You're going to get loaned out because they don't need him. All of a sudden, they have players to fulfil this weekend's fixtures. They're probably including the suspension of Granit Xhaka. Well, he's sent off. That is not COVID. But the worst thing about this, I don't blame Arsenal at all. This fixture today, well, let's reverse a little bit. They were supposed to have that game in the Carabao Cup semi-final against Liverpool, which got postponed because of Liverpool. Now, as a result, Arsenal now have Carabao Cup semi-final, North London derby, Carabao Cup semi-final. They've got the North London derby wedged in the middle of two semi-finals. It wasn't meant to be like that. It was meant to be Carabao Cup semi-final, FA Cup against Nottingham Forest, Carabao Cup semi-final. You'd imagine Arteta would have been able to play full strength, rearrange, shuffle a little bit against Nottingham Forest, which he did, and they got knocked out, but then play the second leg of the Carabao Cup semi-final with his first team again. But he's almost not been allowed to do that, or he could, but it means playing the first team in 3 games in the space of a week because Liverpool postponed the first leg. So I can understand why Arsenal want this Tottenham game moved, so that when they play Liverpool during the week, their team have had a break, they're ready and raring to go, because they were excellent at Anfield. 0-0, fantastic result for them. Never mind the fact they were down to 10 men for an hour of the match, but when you include that, it's even more impressive. They've got a real good chance of reaching the Carabao Cup final. Arsenal are simply exploiting the Premier League's, whatever you want to call it, lack of spine. The fact that you can just request games postponed, the likelihood is going to be approved and it's going to get moved, so that when the semi-final comes around again, they're ready to go. But like I said, this is a domino effect. Most of these things are domino effects of other clubs. One club goes, the next club goes, and so on and so forth. They only want the game postponed because of the semi-final fixtures lying like that, because of Liverpool. Now, this case is where it contradicts itself again. Jurgen Klopp, Liverpool requested the first leg be postponed. It was. Klopp then come out and basically announced that only Trent Alexander-Arnold actually had COVID. The rest of them were false positives. Now, we've all seen the data, the statistics to suggest that the likelihood of those false positives happening is well under 0.1%. Okay, it's close to 0% than it is 0.1% chance of what Jurgen Klopp is saying to be true. The sceptical side of me, a bit like I had with Newcastle and Arsenal's fixtures, I've got one with Liverpool as well. Anyone would think that Alexander-Arnold did have COVID and he didn't really fancy playing Arsenal without Salah, without Mane. It's already difficult, but when you throw in the fact that Alexander-Arnold's out as well, the fixture gets a little bit tougher. So we can delay it a week and then we'll have Alexander-Arnold back. Great, we'll take that. And to contradict Klopp himself, he came out after the game, after sort of tripping himself up a little bit with the false positive stuff, come out after the game and said, well, it was false positives, but I think the COVID was affecting them in some way because we didn't play that. Well, what is it then? What is it? The mask is slipping. And the Premier League clubs at the minute, some of them, not all of them, some of them, they're just taking the piss. They're taking the piss at the Premier Leagues. But the only losers in all this, really, is the fans. The fans are the ones missing out. There's clubs, there's teams who, fortunately West Ham aren't affected, but there's other clubs who the supporters have travelled, the supporters are there, they've gone a couple of 100 miles away for their away game and the game's been postponed. Fans have booked their hotels, their trains, well, you can't use them anymore because the game's postponed, and it's taking the piss out of the fan base essentially, and I think that's what grates on me more. Burnley, a couple of weeks ago, Sean Dyche sat there essentially saying, we're just getting on with things at Burnley. He basically said, we know the protocols, we know what we've got to do, I don't agree with it, but I'm just getting on with it. We've got all this medical advice, and we're using the players that are available, we're just getting on with it. Which was impressive. At that time, I thought, brilliant, here we go. We've got someone, a Premier League manager, not just one other manager, we'll get on to in a minute, it's still the same case I was referring to earlier. We've got a manager here almost calling it out a little bit, calling out the clubs that are taking advantage of all this. But they're at it as well now. And the sceptical side of me, just like the sceptical Geo, is casting doubts over the Arsenal, the Liverpool and Newcastle postponements. And there's other clubs in there as well, not just them. I don't want to go through it club by club, that's all. But the sceptical Geo would suggest it's perhaps because Chris Wood has gone to Newcastle and they don't have a replacement in for him yet. So it suits Burnley to get today's game postponed until hopefully when it comes round again he's got a new striker in his squad. He's spent the 25 million he's got from Newcastle. So while Newcastle are now in a good position, happy to go, Burnley are feeling the impact of the, let's call it bullying if you like, because it's essentially bullying. Is Chris Wood a good signing for Newcastle? Yeah. Is Chris Wood a good Premier League striker? Yeah. Is he a loss for Burnley? Yeah. Is he worth 25 million? Absolutely not. Would Newcastle have purchased Chris Wood if he played for West Ham? No. they're only purchasing because he plays for Burnley for 25 million as well. It's a massive price. So it's expensive for Chris Wood, but it's cheap to stay in the Premier League. And let's face it, that's essentially what they're buying. They're not just buying Chris Wood, the striker. They're buying Chris Wood, the striker, with the bonus of kicking Burnley into the relegation zone and them staying up as well. But anyway, I'm going off our tangent. But as a repercussion of that transfer, Burnley game is now called off this weekend. Now, like I said, I could be completely wrong about all of these clubs, and actually they've all just got 15 cases of COVID and the game's off, but I'm not sure I believe that too much. All I'll say is, when it came to the FA Cup weekend last weekend, nobody needed a game off. They all, funnily enough, they all had enough players to play that fixture. Some would suggest they don't care too much about the FA Cup as they do the Premier League, and they don't mind going out of it. That's all I'm saying. But from a West Ham standpoint, I think we've got this bang on. I think COVID has hit the Premier League in two waves. The first wave was 2 years ago, and that was financially. So there was big question marks about how a club's going to fund this black hole of money they find themselves in. And there were some clubs that got their bum spanked. It wasn't like that. It wasn't kinky. There's nothing kinky here. They got their bum smacked by Joe Public, and rightly so. You know, Liverpool furloughed their staff immediately, got called out, and then they reversed their decision. Fine, so it's sorted, we move on. Arsenal sacked 50, 60 members of staff. Not good. And then handed Aubameyang a massive bumper contract as well. So it was like, well, hang on a minute, you can't do both. Are you skint or are you not skint? Which is it? Bit contradictory. But so we have the financial hit. Now we're seeing a completely different sort of COVID wave, which is a lot of cases, because there's not really been loads of cases since we came back from lockdown. Actually, there has been some, but it's been managed pretty well by all Premier League clubs involved. Now we're really seeing the impact of it, but it's just cheating. Clubs are just using it as an advantage to get their games postponed so they can play them when they're in a better place. But as for West Ham, we got it right financially. A couple of years ago, West Ham got everything right. They kept their staff on, they paid them their wages, the players deferred their wages as much as possible in order to help the club's finances out. Mark Noble was one of the leaders, along with, might I add, I've battered some of these clubs, it's only fair. Harry Maguire, Harry Kane and Jordan Henderson, as well as Mark Noble. For some reason, I think Troy Deeney was another one, but I could be wrong there. But they were sort of leaders, if you like, among the Premier League captains. They raised lots of money for the NHS. They'd done really good work. And I was proud of Mark Noble. I was proud of West Ham United with the way they handled the COVID thing. And I shouldn't be proud of West Ham for fulfilling fixtures. But I'm sort of am, because I'm looking at all this with a little smile on my face, thinking I'm glad we're not doing that. I'm glad we are just getting on with it. We're not the only ones. We're not the only ones. Everybody watching this, if you're not a West Ham fan, will know if your club's taking the piss or not. If you're a Leeds fan, you're probably thinking, hang on a minute. If you're a Villa fan, whatever. Like I said, I could get them wrong, but off the top of my head, it feels like to me that Man City, Leeds, Villa, and there's one other club that I'm trying to not mention on purpose. It feels like they're just getting on with things as much as possible. They're using the youngsters if they have to, and they're just cracking on. Of course, it's easier for Man City, Man U when they've got big squads and stuff. But Man U themselves had the games called off. But they played chicken with the Premier League that day, Man United. They didn't even travel to London to play Brentford. They didn't travel. They requested a postponement of the fixture. And on the day of the game, they were like, well, we're in Manchester, so you're going to postpone the game. They played chicken with the Premier League, and the Premier League had to cave in because, well, it would have been worse for the branding of Premier League. Unfortunately, the Premier League looked at it from a PR side of things and thought, what's worse, postponing the game or having to sort of give Brentford a 3-0 victory because Man U haven't turned up to fulfil the fixture. But anyway, I'm going off a tangent again, really sorry. But the one club I feel really sorry for in all this is Southampton. I was going to do a video about Southampton, I guess, because I'm a West Ham fan first and foremost, obviously, right? I don't think I need to get into details as to why that is, but I'm also a fan of the Premier League and a fan of football. I don't mind being honest and saying I'm a bit of a fan of it. I know it's a bit plasticky, but I don't know football from before the Premier League. I never experienced football prior to the 90s or anything like that, so I know no difference. The Premier League, cash cow and all that, I'm alright with it because I don't know any different. So I'm a fan of the Premier League. I watched Brighton Palace last night. Today I watched the Man City Chelsea game. Later on I watched the Aston Villa Man U. And I might tune into a 3 o'clock one. Tomorrow we've got West Ham Leeds, which I'll obviously watch. But later on I probably won't have Arsenal Tottenham, but I'm supposed to have Arsenal Tottenham to watch tomorrow afternoon. I watch as much Premier League as I can because I enjoy it. I like it. I'm not saying all the games are entertaining, but I enjoy it. And now and again the things coming wrong, I hope to see some things fail, and I hope to see some things succeed. Now at the minute I'm sort of rooting for Burnley over Newcastle. I find myself hoping Burnley stay up and Newcastle go down just because of the Chris Wood transfer. Funnily enough, the Newcastle owners and that, I'm sort of like dismissive of it. I thought, well, there's nothing Newcastle fans can do or anything. It's not their fault. I'm not going to have a go at Newcastle. I quite like Newcastle as a club. I like their fan base. They've got they certainly come across as a very humble and feet on ground fan base kind of thing, and they've been put through the ringer a little bit with Mike Ashley, so I've got nothing against them. But the Chris Wood transfer, I thought, now you're just using your money to bully another club, and that's football, I guess, that's business. But Burnley have been so well run financially, they've spent within their means. They're getting punished for that, essentially. They're getting punished for being a well run, self-sustainable club, and I don't like it. But in the summer, Crystal Palace took in Vieira, a lot of young players, some from the Championship, and I wanted that to succeed. I wanted Palace to do well this season, not because of Palace, but because of the manager, the way they've gone about the transfer strategy. I want to see that model as a club succeed. I wanted... Who was the other club? Villa to some extent. I wanted them to succeed because of the Jack Grealish thing. I thought, go on Villa, I hope you do all right. I want Derby County to stay up more than anything this season in the Championship. I don't like Derby County, I don't mind them, I've got nothing against them. I think Rooney's doing a great job there, but I want Derby to stay up, to stick 2 fingers up to the EFL with a points deduction, when the reason the Sky Sports 6 wouldn't get a points deduction in the Premier League was because of the impact it'll have on the fan base. Yet here we are, kicking Derby to League 1 and almost pushing them against the wall. It was threatening to the club not to exist. Unfortunately for them, they've got Mike Ashley coming in by the looks of it. But what a tangent I've gone off of. What I'm trying to say is, now and again, I find myself rooting for our club for a certain reason. I find myself rooting for Southampton this season because of the way they've gone about everything. I think they've just been fantastic. Hasenhüttl's the one manager who's been coming out saying, we need clarity here. He's not been given any. Anytime he gets asked about postponement, he says, well, tell us how much cases his game against Newcastle got postponed. And he basically said, which players have got COVID? Tell us. No answer. Why? If it's legit, why is this not being disclosed? I know you can't necessarily do it because of medical reasons and player medical confidentiality and that. But what he's saying is, well, if the game's been postponed, we need clarity as to how many COVID cases have you got, or are you simply using that to cover up the injuries and so on and so forth. February, just a year ago now, Southampton went to Old Trafford and they had no players. Well, they obviously had some, but they didn't have enough. They had to hand Premier League debuts out to some players, and they got smashed. They got beaten 9-0. A young lad got sent off within about 2 minutes of the game as well for a stupid tackle, right? They went there and got smashed 9-0. It was embarrassing. I think it doesn't help the fact they got beat 9-0 by Leicester City before it as well. So they got thumped 9-0, live on Sky. Embarrassing for Hasenhüttl, embarrassing for his player. But he had one hand tied behind his back because of the lack of players available to select from. So in the summer, when the transfer window opened, Southampton's strategy was around squad depth. Southampton thought, well, we'll invest in these numbers so that doesn't happen again. So we don't have no players. So if COVID hits us in the coming season, we've got players. We have numbers. We're stronger. So that's what they did. They improved their squad depth. They didn't necessarily improve the starting 11. They went about improving their squad depth so that they were in a position when COVID comes around or injuries come around, they're okay. COVID comes around, their games are getting postponed. They're saying, hang on a minute. In the summer, our whole transfer strategy was around preventing this, and now we're getting punished because no other club done the same thing. At Christmas time, they had 2 games back-to-back Southampton. They beat West Ham. They beat West Ham in that period. Prior to that, basically, Hasenhüttl split his squad in 2 essentially. Basically, that's my starting 11 for that game. That's my starting 11 for that game. Before the first game had even taken place, he'd already decided on his teams for both games because he knew that stuff like this might happen. And again, he gets hit in the bollocks for Southampton. Hasenhüttl's getting punished for planning with COVID. the rest of us, the rest of the Premier League, I say rest, about 12 teams in the Premier League, I guess maybe, is simply taking advantage of what the Premier League have put in place. There was a meeting a few weeks ago, and it was decided in that meeting, if you've got 14 players, the game gets played. Simple as that. Yet we're not doing that. It's got out of hand, and the Premier League need to put a stop to it. From a selfish standpoint, a West Ham standpoint, like I said, I'm proud of the club. We played Tottenham in the Cup. We got beat. If we played that game again today, we'd have had Creswell would be there, we'd have Curtis Zuma, and we'd have Soufal. Soufal was suspended for that game. And we had to play Harrison Ashby, a player that barely had any minutes in the first game. We played him. We were going to play Norwich the following game with Harrison Ashby playing because we were just getting on with it. We played that Tottenham game with none of our first team defence playing, and we got beat. But we played it, we fulfilled the fixture, and the result was you're out the Carabao Cup at the quarter-final stage. Fine, we take it on the chin, we move on. But then when you see other clubs bending the rules at best, it doesn't sit right with me. And like I said, selfishly, I hope in the coming months, because we fulfilled all our fixtures, the only one we didn't was Norwich because of Norwich, and it's been and gone now, we've done that. We're on course. West Ham are currently on track with their Premier League games play. Leicester have got about 5 games in hand compared to us. Burnley have got 4 games in hand compared to teams around them as well. It's well and truly out of control. I'm just hoping that fixture congestion comes back and bites these clubs in the arse later on in the season. That they are playing weekend, midweek. I hope they're playing like that for about a month, so that come the end of it, there's no COVID, there's no injuries, but they simply got fatigue on their hands, and actually it's a bit of a leveler really. Obviously West Ham and other teams have just got on with it. Benefit from that. We might have a European campaign in there, but if we didn't, we'd be playing weekend. We'd have our rest period. Anyway, oh my god, 21 minutes. I'm really sorry. I'm going to disappear now. Basically, I wanted to say that the Premier League are allowing clubs to take the piss, and I'm not a big fan of it. So the clubs that aren't taking the piss, I hope they do well this season, and the ones that are taking advantage of it, shame on you, really. In a world where COVID generally has impacted a lot of people, whether it be financially or family-wise and stuff, and obviously people have taken the piss massively, no other than the guy at number 10. But the club at the minute are just using COVID as an excuse and not the real reason. That doesn't sit right with me. Anyway, a different video. I don't know why I thumped the table. Different video for you today, a bit of a rant. If you've enjoyed it, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back to West Ham Leeds, providing the game doesn't get called off. It shouldn't, because them two clubs, they've just been getting on with it.